Hello and welcome back to Cyril's Brettspiele. My name is Niels.
My name is Kathleen Mercury.
And today in Table Talk we are talking about cacao and my favorite chocolate.
It's delicious. But it's not good for dogs, so Flurry doesn't get to play this one, unfortunately. So sad.
Okay, sorry Flurry. So I think because you did the rules for cacao already, you're doing the rules for this too?
Yes.
Great, okay.
So this module here, well, these are sort of, I guess, water plantations, and the water is important because for this module, whenever you want to use one of these, when you place it on the grid, what's nice is that you get four cacao when you have a meeple butting up against it. However, you must spend one, you must move down once on the water track. So, you know, yes, you'll get 4 cacao out of it, but every time you use it, you will lose a water unless you are actively trying to gain more water in its return. So it has a good benefit, but you also have to make sure you balance for that. Okay, here are the huts. The huts range in value from a low of 10 to a high of 12, I believe, and they have different, 24, no, I lied. Oh my gosh, look how fancy that one is. What this does is when you buy them, sometimes they just give you straight points, but then they give you other sorts of ways that you can either maximize an action during a turn, where you have some just additional endgame scoring. I mean, this one here lets you, each hut that you have, not including this one, would give you an additional $1. This one lets you place tiles, overlap tiles, without the benefit of the sun disk. And so these tiles are worth what you paid. So you spend 24 points, for example, for this one to get 24 points back. However, it does give you this. So in buying these tiles, it's both to maximize your own game and prevent other people from having access to these hut tiles. The final type, which is probably my favorite aspect to the game, just in terms of giving you more abilities, is you have the ability to convert cacao into actual bars of chocolate. So when these tiles are placed, you place yours, you can take this action, you turn in your cacao, you get bars of chocolate. Later, when these markets come out, you can see here you can either sell cacao for $3 or bars of chocolate for $7. So if you have the ability, for example, to use this hut here, which for every 3 guys, it actually lets you take a 4th action. If you put a tile down with 3 of your meeples here, you could actually convert 4 of these bars into into chocolate itself for $28. So I like that it gives this extra market as well.
Thanks again for taking over the rules.
You're very
Even
welcome.
if you added some of your personal opinions this time.
God forbid.
I'm forgiving you.
Right.
So yeah, just for the components, it's exactly the same what you get from the base game. There is nothing. Honestly, the chocolate bars for a German guy doesn't really look like chocolate bars, but anyways.
Well, I like that the colors aren't totally uniform. Some are a little bit lighter, some are a little bit darker, and I like that part too. Just, you know that not all chocolates are the same color, so if you really like dark chocolate, you can just take the dark ones, and if you really like milk chocolate, you can take the milk ones. So
I have never thought about that way. Anyway,
I'm just trying to make chocolate out of cacao here, so
great, thematically great. So yeah, for the critics and for the replayability and the mechanics, I would say we should split that up into the different modules. A couple of them are really good, making that game super strategic. A couple of them are, I would say, so-so for me at least, but I'm probably a little bit ahead of that.
Yeah, one thing to mention, I don't know if we did, is that when you add in additional tiles, you will have to take some out. I don't know if I made that point clear when I went over the rules. So you won't have just this endless amount of tiles to add to the game. So we made that mistake the first time. So make sure that when you are playing with any of the additional tiles or with less than 4 players, you take out the tiles as necessary.
Yeah, this stack is not like a Carcassonne stack. It's not stacking up until you have no more room in your boxes. This always slimmed down to the same number of tiles, which is really important.
Yes.
When it comes to the different modules, I would say my favorite model is this Foresight model where you have this little maps here, and you can buy from these here twice per game, so you know exactly. I only wanted to use that when it's a really big move and really important tile I wanted to purchase for it.
Well, and I think honestly, where if you weren't necessarily in love with all of the modules that come in the expansion, like this one is worth keeping for me just as a house rule, where you would have 2 tiles that, you know, that were like harder to get, than you just give every player like, you know, 2 $1 coins, and that they could spend them in the game and just use that.
Yeah, I agree.
Because that's the only other thing I would say is, you know, if you don't use the map tiles, they're not worth anything at the end of the game. So maybe if they're worth like a coin or 2, that might be kind of interesting too. But you only have 2 of them. So that's the only thing I would maybe do a little bit differently there. But having 4 tiles to choose from, for me, is way better than just the 2 kind of random ones that come up. So for me, I definitely like that better.
For me, it gives a lot of more strategic decisions to the game, because you know what comes up. You also know, is it worth to just build 1 or even 2, or sometimes even build 3 to get through it, or do I want to place a tile where I cannot place another one, to not giving, in this case, Kathleen the ability to play the good tile, or at least she has to spend a map for it.
Right.
So I like that part. The chocolate making, of course, I mean, who else in this world is not a huge fan of chocolate?
Right.
Probably no one in this world.
Right.
So everybody who likes chocolate wants to make chocolate. When chocolate is in the game, you want to make chocolate. Is it worth it from the victory points? Honestly, I cannot say it. It's a difference between 3 or 4 on the market and 7. Takes an additional turn. Yeah,
but I do like that it does, especially when you're playing this with kids, giving that option for like an immediate benefit or that longer term benefit of spending time and having an additional higher payoff. So I think I really like it for that benefit, because especially for me as a player, you know, wanting to maximize everything as much as possible, that was way more interesting to me probably in terms of choices than anything else that is available in the expansion or even in the base game. So, I mean, I like economic games, I like engine building games. It's a tiny engine, but I really liked it.
Yeah, you're pointing out a very interesting psychology question for kids. You get a donut today, or tomorrow 2 donuts.
Right, or 3 donuts total when you come to Aunt Kathy's house. Yay.
I've never heard that in this test, but anyway. Okay, great.
Hi, Ollie Rentilda.
Let's switch to the other 2 models. So the model of the huts, where you can buy these huts, is, well, that is, for me at least, so-so.
I think the huts are stupid.
Oh, yeah, that's not necessarily a bold statement.
Okay, not necessarily stupid, but
go ahead.
Thank you. The huts cost their amount in victory points. So one of the main reasons to buy them is for whatever benefits are there, buying them for yourself to make sure no one else can get them. So you don't ever lose anything by buying out a hut unless you don't buy the right hut. But for some of them, you know, yeah, when they just, like for the high value ones, when they come with additional victory points, yeah, that's obvious. But for some of the other ones that have very specific uses that you don't know if you're actually going to need, or they're, you know, then those are the ones that are a little bit more iffy for me in terms of buying. Like, and I think like the symbol work on some of them, you know, isn't as intuitive, I think, design-wise as some of, like, the, you know, because they're just trying to convey, you know, multiple pieces of information on one tiny little tile. For me, the tiles are kind of a wash, really, in terms of whether or not I would keep them, play with them.
I feel, I mean, you decide which tiles you're playing with in terms you're taking all the tiles, throw them into there, and which side lands up is the tile you're playing with. And some of these tiles have really interesting abilities, like this. When you place a tile with, from your own tribe with 3 meeples on it, you can take the action 4 times. That's a really powerful tile if you time that correctly and you use that proper. Also,
that probably got you the game for the last game.
Of course, yes.
Point-wise, that was the difference.
But I planned on that the whole game. The whole game was just for that, for me. at least for try it out. Another one that I really like is you don't have to have SanDisk, so you don't care about if you're getting the SanDisk out of your stack or not. So there are a couple of tiles I really like. A couple of them I agree that are probably not even worth to buy. Or this one, this is a cheap one, 4. When you go to the 2 market, you get 3 coins out of it. It really depends when you acquire that. If you acquire that early in the game and the 2 markets coming out early too, it's probably worth it.
Right, I had that tile, and the last 2 tiles to come out were the $2 market ones. So other than just keeping those away from points I didn't get and he didn't get, there really wasn't much of a benefit.
However, you had in the same game, each hut is giving you a point, so you turned $4 into 5 victory points.
Right, and it is a pretty tight margin of victory, so sometimes, you know, squeezing out an extra point or 2 here or there can really make a big difference in the end. So, but ultimately, like, for the amount of, like, you know, trying to figure out, is this one helpful, or can I, because it didn't really allow you very much to, like, shift your game to that end, like, okay, I know I have these huts, I'm definitely going to do this. You don't have that much ability or time to really make those kinds of moves either, so it's just, you know, more kind of luck almost on top of there's a decent amount of decision making, a decent amount of luck, I'm okay with that, but for me, I don't think they're really worth playing with.
Yeah, as I told you, I'm so with this. I would totally disagree what Kathleen said. So if it comes to some specific of these tiles, I'm super liking that they are in, and I'm super hot for them. The 3 turns into 4. And I also like that they are not super swingy, so not when you get this tile you immediately win. So that's just tiny little bits. It feels like it's naturally built in the game, but on the other hand, I agree, if these boring tiles that I make the market are 2 out of 3 and you never use it, it's simply boring. So some of these are really extremely weak, therefore probably not worth to play with.
Yeah.
It's for me the weakest module, at least.
Oh yeah, I mean, and like for the high value ones, you know, spending 20 points to get an additional 5 points, yeah, that's awesome. But for some of them, especially if you're doing this in a 3 or 4 player game, I think they'd be a lot more swingy then, just depending what you had, but I think you have far less opportunity to really maximize them if that's what you're trying to do.
Alright, let's go to the last one, to the plantation thing here, where you spend 1 water to get 4 cacao. I can say what I like on it, that you're always limited to your 5 spaces. I think we never mentioned that either in the base game or in this one, but now we mentioned that you only have a storage of 5 pieces. With the expansion, either chocolate or cacao. In the base game, just cacao. So changing 1 into 4, changing 1 water into 4 is a big thing. If you already have 3 in it, it's not worth it at that point. So it needs a lot of good timing to use that. However, that is for me at least a really good challenge. It lays there, and you're always dancing around this tile a little bit.
I almost don't understand why that was included as an expansion and just not in the box itself, unless they came up with it later. But to me, I think it's a good tile to have. I don't know why you wouldn't play with it. Like you would always keep it in.
Yeah.
You would always just make that one of the possibilities. Maybe only 1 or 2 of them, not necessarily all 3. But you would always put that in the box, just part of the base game. It's not even almost, to me, not even worth talking about like as an exciting sort of expansion. It just seems like
natural.
Yeah, just part of the game that should be there.
Just to let you know, if you're playing with 2 players, you only have 2. If you play with 3, you have 3 tiles. And with 4, 3 tiles also. What I feel is a little bit weird on that module, and I think you pointed that out for the first time, is why it's part of the setup. Why you have this tile as a setup. Because when you start with the guy here on this waterhole spot, so you don't have any waterhole guys, so you cannot use that. Is it to spread out a little bit more in going into the white?
Yeah.
And I think you pointed out, if you really wanted that.
Yeah, just to clarify, if you use that module, for the 2 tiles that start the board, you know, corner to corner, one of them is one of those water plantations. You can't play it. There makes like no sense to build off it if you point a guy to it, you can't even use it at all. So I don't understand that at all, like why it's part of setup. And like you said, like maybe it's to force an expansion or something like that. All that happened is we just started building off one tile to then, once we finally had a water in the game, and then we could use it, we all did. Both of us did. But otherwise, I don't understand why you would have that as part of setup unless you wanted to make sure it absolutely was part of the game. But again, I don't understand why that tile, not anything else. Like for me personally, even if that's what you were supposed to do, I would not do that. I would shuffle them in with the rest. That's it.
Probably that was an issue. We tried that particular module today a couple of times. And probably one of the things is when we played that was just two. First of all, you're obviously, every other turn is your turn.
Right.
So you're playing a couple of times before you really use that. And 3 or 4 players, you probably only have 2 turns. Or the first turn you're not using that. On the second you can use it. And the second part is if you have this tile on your hand where you have a meeple on every side, this is really stupid.
Right.
But if you don't have that tile, if you have a tile where you have a blank side, it's probably not as bad as it looks like.
Yeah, but then you're just blocking out future ability to use the tile. I just don't understand.
Me too.
I mean, and there's definitely times like, yeah, you're right. If you play one with a blank side, there's going to be tiles you can't use or you don't want to use, and that's okay. It just seems really weird to me to force that into setup when knowing that for the first round of the game, or at least definitely for the first player, they won't be able to use that tile.
Maybe a good question for Phil, if you're looking this. Phil Walker Harding. Explain us why this is part of the setup. We both didn't get why.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good tile. It needs to make its way in the game. Hi, Phil. Yeah, you know. If we're doing that, shout-outs.
Nice fanboyish.
Yeah.
Hi, Phil.
We've never met before. I mean, I'm sure you're great. No, but I guess I just don't understand why that would be part of the setup. That just seems weird to me when it's just like automatically like you can't use it. So then why don't just put then one tile down for a setup?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So let's come to the point where we talk about if it was to buy this expansion, yes or no. Give me your final thoughts first.
I mean, honestly, I don't think I would enjoy playing Cacao as much without it. So I would say I would buy this plus Cacao if I really wanted to own Cacao, for sure.
Okay. For me, it makes a good game. I was not so harsh as you on the first one. It makes a good game, definitely a better game. I enjoyed more with that. So, however, I'm always starting for teaching purposes with the base game, and the second game is always with this. And from that on, always when I taught it to your kids, for an example. But it makes it a better game. But for me, with all of the 4 modules. So for me, it's a high recommendation. If you already play Cacao, you must buy chocolate for me, and then it feels like a natural. This expansion should be built in the base.
That's my thought too. When you said like, you know, for a teaching game to start out with a basic game, it's really not that complicated. So for me personally, I just think all of this should be in the game. So maybe if they made another edition of Cacao where just the 2 were lumped together, for me that would be much more appealing than just find the 2 separate games.
Yeah, so that's it. I will make one more sentence as a conclusion. So if you are looking for a family-friendly tile-laying game, Cacao may be one of the games you should consider when you buy the chocolate expansion as well. Without, there are other games, tile-laying games. For me personally, Carcassonne is a little bit too cutthroaty with some people, so people can play that really harsh.
That's why I like it.
Yeah, I know, and when we play it, it's fine, but other people are not as so competitive as we. So if you're looking for a little bit more family-appealing game, probably this one is something you should consider.
I agree with that.
Alright, thanks for watching again. Silver's Brettspiele with
Kathleen Mercury.
And the other guy. And see you next time. Bye-bye.